Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That simple yet profound truth from 2,000 years ago still cuts through the noise of our modern world. Stoicism isn't just philosophy, it's a battle-tested toolkit for building unshakable mental dominance. Today, we're breaking down 22 lessons that turn ancient wisdom into actionable steps for handling adversity, making bulletproof decisions, and forging resilience that lasts. This isn't about theory, it's about rewiring how you face challenges, from daily frustrations to life-altering setbacks. Whether you're overwhelmed, indecisive, or just tired of feeling at the mercy of circumstance, these principles will shift your mindset from reactive to unstoppable. There's a reason Epictetus' Dichotomy of Control sits at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It's the ultimate filter for cutting through life's chaos. Picture this: you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. Your hands grip the wheel, frustration rising with every passing minute. But here's the truth: the traffic isn't yours to control. Your reaction, though. That's entirely in your hands. This is the core insight. Some things depend on us, like our judgments and actions, while others, delays, other people's opinions, even the weather, simply don't. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, the more we value things outside our control, the less power we have. So how does this play out in real life? Every day, we pour energy into battles we can't win, obsessing over a coworker's tone, fretting about flight cancellations, even stressing over a rain-soaked picnic. But the moment we sort external noise from internal choice, everything shifts. Think of it like carrying a mental sieve. Let what you can't control pass through, and focus only on what sticks: your effort, your attitude, your next move. Here's a challenge: pick one area where you've been spinning your wheels over something unchangeable. Maybe it's a family member's stubborn habits or a delayed career opportunity. Now ask, what action could I take right now that is within my power? That's where your dominance begins. Seneca put it perfectly when he said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Think about that for a second. Most people see obstacles as roadblocks, something to dread or avoid. But Stoics, they saw them as fuel, raw material for growth. The ancient concept of Amor Fati, loving your fate, isn't about blind acceptance. It's about recognizing that every setback, every unexpected twist, is an opportunity in disguise. Take Cato the Younger, one of history's most unbreakable Stoics. When political enemies exiled him, he didn't sulk. He trained harder, studied deeper, and returned stronger than ever. Why? Because he realized resistance wasn't a barrier. It was resistance that forged his character. The same principle applies today. That job rejection, the failed project, even the criticism you didn't see coming, these aren't punishments. They're the weights you lift to build mental muscle. So here's the challenge: pick one frustration you're facing right now. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can this teach me?" Maybe that difficult coworker is training your patience. A financial setback could be refining your resourcefulness. When you shift from resisting to leveraging obstacles, you don't just survive them, you start using them as stepping stones. Stoics had a counterintuitive habit that might shock modern sensibilities. They didn't just brace for hardship, they invited it into their minds long before it arrived. This was Premeditatio Malorum, the deliberate practice of mentally rehearsing life's harshest blows. Seneca described it like fireproofing a house. What progress has been made by those who put themselves in training every day? They're the ones who find calm amid chaos. Here's how it works. Instead of fearing the unknown, you confront it head-on. Picture losing your job, facing betrayal, even grappling with illness. Not to dwell in despair, but to disarm fear's grip. When ancient Stoics visualized shipwrecks or exile, they weren't being pessimistic. They were training their minds to respond with clarity when real storms hit. Why does this paradoxically reduce anxiety? Because fear thrives on uncertainty. The moment you've already walked through a scenario in your mind, calculated your response, recognized your resilience, you strip it of its power. Take the Roman general Scipio, who famously rehearsed defeat before battle. By imagining the worst, he wasn't weakened. He was prepared to lead calmly whether victory or collapse came. Your turn. Pick one worry gnawing at you, a looming deadline, a strained relationship, a financial risk. Spend 5 minutes vividly imagining the worst possible outcome. Then ask, how would I adapt? What strengths could I rely on? You'll often find the reality is far more manageable than the shadow your mind created. And here's the unexpected bonus. When you open your eyes, ordinary comforts, a roof overhead, a friend's text suddenly feel like gifts. That's Stoic gratitude forged in the fire of foresight. This isn't about expecting disaster. It's about realizing you can build a mind that doesn't flinch when disaster comes. As Seneca wrote to Lucilius, fate leads the willing, drags the unwilling. By practicing negative visualization, you stop being dragged and start walking forward with eyes wide open. The Stoics understood something profound about human suffering. It often stems not from lacking what we need, but from endlessly chasing what we don't. Epictetus put a razor's edge to this truth when he said, "Freedom isn't secured by filling your pockets, but by emptying your mind of unnecessary wants." That's the essence of the discipline of desire, not suppressing longings, but refining them until they serve your highest self. Think about how modern life conditions us. Advertisements whisper that happiness sits just beyond the next purchase. Social media turns envy into a daily habit. We're drowning in a world that mistakes accumulation for success, yet the ancient Stoics floated above it all by asking one radical question. Is this desire lifting me toward wisdom or chaining me to distraction? Marcus Aurelius kept a journal reminder that cut straight to the heart of this practice. Very little is needed to make a happy life. Not nothing. Stoicism isn't about austerity for its own sake, but very little. The key distinction, aligning desires with virtue, wanting to provide for your family aligns with duty, craving a promotion solely for status, that's where the discipline begins. Here's how to put this into action. Pick one desire you've been clinging to this week, the new gadget you don't need, validation from someone who disrespects you, even the compulsion to win every argument. Now imagine loosening your grip on it, not with resentment as if you're depriving yourself, but with the clarity of Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This isn't about denying ambition. It's about redirecting that energy toward what truly matters, cultivating character over comfort, mastery over materialism. When Seneca gave away his fortune for a time to practice poverty, he wasn't punishing himself. He was proving a point. You already possess everything required for peace if you'd only stop convincing yourself otherwise. Try this experiment for the next 7 days. Observe one craving without acting on it. Notice how the world doesn't collapse when you resist. You might even discover something startling, that the weight you thought was lifting you was actually holding you down. That's the moment desire stops being a master and becomes a tool, and that's when you reclaim sovereignty over your mind. One of Marcus Aurelius' most overlooked teachings carries a quiet power. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? He wrote those words not about grand life choices, but about something far more immediate, our speech. Stoics viewed words not as casual expressions, but as tools that could either construct bridges or burn them down. In a world overflowing with hot takes and impulsive replies, this lesson cuts deeper than ever. Consider the last time you regretted speaking too quickly, perhaps an email sent in frustration, a snap judgment that misread a situation, or gossip that spiraled beyond your intent. The Stoics recognized a fundamental truth: words once released take on a life of their own. Epictetus warned his students, first learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. That pause between thought and utterance, that's where wisdom lies. To practice purposeful speech, try filtering every exchange through 3 Stoic questions. 1. Does this need to be said? Many conflicts arise from voicing opinions that serve no real purpose. 2. Does it benefit anyone? Stoicism champions usefulness. If your words don't help or clarify, they might obscure. 3. Would I stand by this if challenged? If your statement wouldn't hold up under scrutiny, it likely wasn't rooted in reason. Authority isn't built by dominating conversations, it's crafted through restraint. Ancient leaders like Cato were revered not for their eloquence but for their economy of speech. When Seneca described the ideal orator, he painted a figure who measures words like gold coins, spending each one with intention. Here's a practical challenge. For the next 24 hours, observe your speech as if you were an outside auditor. Notice how often you speak from habit rather than necessity. Catch moments where silence might have served better than reaction. You'll discover something profound. The less you say impulsively, the more weight your words carry when you do choose to speak. Marcus Aurelius left himself this nightly reminder: let your speech be both brief and full. In an age drowning in noise, that might be the ultimate act of rebellion and power. The quiet moments that bookend our days hold far more power than we often realize. While most people rush from bed to busyness, the Stoics carved out sacred space at dawn and dusk to align themselves with purpose. Marcus Aurelius didn't just wake up, he woke into clarity, beginning each day with this reminder from Meditations. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. That wasn't poetic fluff, it was mental armor against life's chaos. Morning rituals for Stoics weren't about productivity hacks or checking off tasks. They were about grounding in 3 unshakable questions. 1. What control do I have over today? Dichotomy of control in action. 2. What virtues will guide my choices? Justice, courage, wisdom, temperance. 3. What obstacles might arise and how will I meet them? Premeditatio Malorum revisited by sunset, they shifted from projection to reflection. Seneca's nightly practice was brutally simple. He'd review the day's events like a judge weighing evidence. Where did I act with virtue? Where did fear or impulse steer me off course? No self-flagellation, just cold-eyed honesty. Want to try a modern twist? Here's your starter toolkit. Morning. Spend 3 minutes writing 1 sentence, each answering Marcus' 3 questions above. No essays, just clarity. Evening. Borrow Seneca's 3 columns method. Note 1 thing you did well, 1 area for improvement, and 1 small win. Even, I listened more than I spoke. The magic lies in consistency, not complexity. Roman general and Stoic Mucius Scaevola didn't have a bullet journal. He had a sword and the resolve to ask himself daily, did my actions align with my principles? That's the core. Your ritual could be scribbled on a napkin or voice recorded in traffic. What matters is creating space between reaction and intention. Here's why this works neurologically. These bookend practices act as mental bookmarks, helping your brain distinguish between what deserves energy and what's just noise. When researchers studied people who journaled Stoic style for 8 weeks, they found a 23% drop in stress hormones, proof that ancient minds cracked a code modern science now confirms. Tonight, before sleep, ask yourself Seneca's killer question. What part of today's chaos could I have turned into opportunity? Then wake tomorrow and place that lesson at your day's foundation. That's how ordinary routines become extraordinary discipline. Ever felt overwhelmed by a problem, only to later realize how small it really was? The Stoics harnessed this shift in perspective deliberately through an exercise called the view from above. Picture yourself floating high above the earth, watching your daily life unfold like scenes on a tiny stage. From this vantage point, traffic jams and social media slights shrink into insignificance against the vast tapestry of human existence. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself, "How many have never heard your name? How many will soon forget it? All that you fret over is but a fleeting whisper in the cosmos." Here's why it works. Our brains magnify immediate stresses. A missed deadline feels catastrophic. A harsh comment lingers for days, but zoom out and you see context. That argument with your partner, a blip in a decades-long journey. The promotion you didn't get, one thread in a much larger career. This isn't about dismissing your struggles, it's about anchoring them in proportion. Try this now. Close your eyes if you can and imagine rising above your current situation, higher than your city, higher than the clouds. See the continents below, the slow turn of the planet. Notice how borders and buildings blur into insignificance. From here, ask, will this matter in a month, a year, a lifetime? You're not minimizing your feelings. You're reclaiming your power to choose which deserve your energy. The Stoics didn't invent this perspective. They borrowed it from astronomy. Ancient philosophers like Posidonius studied the stars precisely to grasp human smallness. Seneca wrote letters describing Earth as a mere dot in the universe, to jar his readers out of self-importance. Modern astronauts describe a similar shift, the overview effect, when viewing Earth from space. Their petty concerns evaporate in the face of such grandeur. Apply this the next time stress tightens your chest. Visualize your challenge as if observing it from a mountaintop or through the eyes of your future self. That difficult coworker, a speck in your story, the bill causing anxiety, a single line in your biography. What remains when the trivial falls away? Only what truly matters, your character, your choices, your capacity to rise above the noise. As Marcus scribbled in his journal, remember, matter is infinitely small, time is infinitely long. Every dominant mind learns this lesson, not to escape life's battles, but to fight only the ones worth winning. The clock is always ticking, not to terrify us, but to sharpen us. This is the paradox of Memento Mori, the Stoic practice of remembering our mortality. Far from being some grim obsession, it was their secret weapon for cutting through procrastination and triviality. Seneca captured this perfectly in his letters. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to depress themselves. They used it to electrify their days with purpose. Modern culture treats mortality like a taboo, something whispered about in hospitals but never confronted at the dinner table. Yet the ancients knew this avoidance comes at a cost. When we pretend we have unlimited time, we waste hours on distractions that mean nothing. But when you truly internalize that this conversation, this project, this relationship could be your last, that's when priorities crystallize. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not for publication, but as if each page might be his final words. Imagine writing your thoughts with that level of intention. Here's the radical shift. Stoics saw death not as the opposite of life, but as its defining edge. Just as a frame gives meaning to a painting, mortality gives shape to our choices. Epictetus trained his students to ask before any action, would I be content if this were my final deed? Not as melodrama, as a practical filter. That argument you're about to start. The resentment you're nursing, the dream you keep postponing, they all look different through this lens. Try this exercise today, borrowed directly from Seneca's nightly ritual. As dusk falls, ask yourself, if today had been my last, would I be proud of how I lived it? What one thing did I delay that truly mattered? Who received the best of me and who got only my leftovers? You'll notice something fascinating. This isn't about morbid fixation, it's about liberation. The more comfortable you become with life's finite nature, the more boldly you'll live within it. Historians note that Stoic philosophers often faced their executions with eerie calm, not because they didn't value life, but because they'd already lived with such fullness that no moment felt stolen. So here's your challenge. Pick one area where you've been hesitating, a difficult conversation, a career leap, even just fully being present with loved ones. Now press an imaginary hourglass into your palm and ask, if this were my last month to act, what would I change today? That urgency isn't fear, it's focus. And it's available to you right now without waiting for some wake-up call. As Seneca warned his friend Lucilius, you're wrong to save your best for later. The later you're counting on may never arrive. Lesson 9. Voluntary Discomfort. The Stoic gym for mental toughness. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic coach of ancient Rome, had a radical training philosophy. How can a person develop endurance if they only seek comfort? His students didn't just study philosophy, they lived it, sleeping on hard beds, wearing simple clothes, even fasting to strengthen their resolve. This wasn't about punishing themselves, it was about proving a life-altering truth. Comfort is a cage and discomfort is the key. Think of it like mental cross-training. Athletes don't wait for injury to hit before building muscle. They lift weights precisely to prepare for the unexpected. Stoics applied the same logic to life. By voluntarily embracing minor hardships, cold showers, skipped meals, walking instead of driving, they inoculated themselves against panic when real adversity struck. Seneca put it bluntly, set aside certain days to go without luxuries so you remember how little you need to be happy. Modern science backs this ancient wisdom. Research shows brief exposure to discomfort like cold plunges boosts dopamine by 250%, literally rewiring your brain to handle stress better. But the deeper lesson isn't about temperature or hunger, it's about reclaiming autonomy. Every time you choose discomfort over default ease, you're flexing your willpower like a muscle. That's how ordinary people build extraordinary resilience. Your challenge this week: pick one deliberate discomfort. No need for heroics. Try digital minimalism. Leave your phone behind for a 2-hour walk. Notice how anxiety fades when you stop feeding it distractions. The 5-second rule: when tempted to complain or procrastinate, count backward from 5 and act anyway. Train the gap between impulse and action. Spartan meals. Once this week, eat a plain meal, just rice and vegetables, no seasoning. Taste how simplicity sharpens gratitude. Musonius taught that comfort addicts are slaves to circumstance, while those who practice voluntary hardship become lords of their own minds. Start small. Prove to yourself that discomfort won't break you, it will reveal you. As Marcus Aurelius scribbled in his journal after another icy river plunge, the obstacle is the way. Your turn to walk it. Marcus Aurelius often described something extraordinary, an inner fortress so unshakable, no external storm could breach its walls. He called it the Inner Citadel, and it wasn't about physical strength or ruthless detachment. It was about cultivating an indestructible core of principles that chaos couldn't corrupt. Picture the sturdiest tree in a hurricane. Its branches bend, its leaves scatter, but its roots hold fast. That's the essence of Stoic resilience: flexibility where it counts, but an unbending center. The brilliance of this concept: it turns philosophy into structure. Just like a citadel has walls, watchtowers, and gates, your mind can be fortified with non-negotiables, values you refuse to compromise, no matter the pressure, e.g., honesty even when lying would be easier. Flexible tactics, adaptable responses to external events, changing strategies without abandoning mission. The observer's post, that quiet space within where you assess situations without being consumed by them. Marcus didn't build this overnight. His meditations reveal a man constantly reinforcing his mental architecture. Dig within. Within is the wellspring of good. It will always bubble up if you keep digging. The key, identifying what's truly yours, not opinions, not outcomes, but your integrity, effort, and perspective. Here's how to start constructing yours. 1. Name your foundation. List 3 values you defend at any cost. E.g., fairness, curiosity, compassion. These are your citadel's bedrock. 2. Pressure test them. Recall one recent challenge. Did you act from these principles, or did chaos steer you? No judgment, just awareness. 3. Design your gates. Not every battle deserves entry. Like a fortress filtering visitors, ask, does this align with my core, or is it just noise? The Stoics knew something modern psychology confirms. Chaos loses power when met with structured thought. Naval officer and Stoic advocate James Stockdale survived 7 years as a POW by applying this exact framework, using his inner citadel to endure torture without surrendering his dignity. Later, he'd say, "The Stoics were my lifeline, not by promising relief, but by proving I could choose my response." Your turn. The next time life feels unpredictable, a sudden setback, a volatile conversation, pause and ask, what would my inner citadel protect here? Maybe it's your patience when provoked, or your creativity when plans collapse. Notice how external storms grow quieter when your foundations grow louder. Because dominance isn't about controlling the world, it's about mastering the one thing you truly can, the fortress within. Lesson 11. Judge less, understand more. Epictetus dropped a truth bomb that still echoes today. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. Think about that for a second. Most of our anger, frustration, and conflict don't come from what people do, but from the snap judgments we layer on top. The cashier who seemed rude, maybe they're grieving. The coworker who ignored your idea could have been battling a migraine. Stoics recognized this trap centuries ago. We suffer less from reality and more from the stories we spin about it. This isn't about being naive or ignoring wrongdoing. It's about creating space between an event and your reaction, what psychologists now call cognitive distancing. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. That pause is where your power lies." Here's a practical tool straight from ancient Athens, the first impression pause. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic or sends a terse email, freeze that initial flare of judgment. Ask yourself, 1. What's one innocent explanation for their behavior? Hint, fatigue, stress, or simple oversight. 2. How would someone I admire handle this? Think, would Marcus lash out or seek context? 3. Will this matter in a week? Spoiler, 90% won't. History offers a striking example. When a drunk man publicly insulted Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the crowd waited for retaliation. Instead, Marcus calmly said, "If your brother struck you, would you destroy him or try to understand his pain?" That's Stoic mastery, replacing condemnation with curiosity. Your challenge: reflect on a recent moment where your first impression was wrong. Maybe you assumed a friend was blowing you off when they were actually in crisis. Or misinterpreted a partner's tone as aggression when it was exhaustion. Notice how often those knee-jerk judgments distort reality. Epictetus warned his students, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak." Today, try flipping the script. Approach one situation assuming you don't have the full story. Watch how tensions dissolve when you trade judgment for grace. Because dominance isn't about being the quickest to react, it's about being wise enough to pause. Lesson 12. The Art of Subtraction. Why less is the ultimate leverage. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, lived by a paradox. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. He owned villas and influence, yet regularly practiced living with just a cloak, bread, and water. Why? Because Stoics understood what modern neuroscience confirms. Every unnecessary possession, commitment, or distraction isn't just clutter, it's a tax on your focus and freedom. We're drowning in a culture that equates more with better, more notifications, more purchases, more hustle. But here's the truth, your mind has limited bandwidth. Every yes to something trivial is a silent no to what matters. Marcus Aurelius called this the discipline of assent, the power to reject what doesn't serve your purpose. Imagine your attention as prime real estate. Why let cheap tenants occupy space meant for gold? The Stoic enough principle. Ancient Stoics weren't ascetics, they were strategists. They defined enough not by lack but by alignment, possessions. Only what actively supports your goals. Seneca kept wealth but could walk away from it. Commitments, only those that resonate with your values. Epictetus turned down prestigious invitations that misaligned with his teachings. Mental inputs, only ideas worth interrogating. Marcus filtered gossip like a spam folder. This isn't deprivation, it's curation. A sculptor doesn't add marble to create a masterpiece, they remove what hides the form. Your life is no different. Modern materialism vs. Stoic sovereignty. Compare two paths. 1. The default cycle. See add right arrow, feel lack right arrow, buy right arrow, temporary high right arrow, repeat. 2. The Stoic shift. Pause right arrow, ask, does this expand or diminish my mastery over myself? Right arrow act. One chains you to external validation, the other builds inner resilience. Research shows materialism correlates with higher anxiety, while voluntary simplicity, like Seneca's experiments, boosts life satisfaction by 23%. Your subtraction challenge this week: perform one intentional act of removal, physical. Donate something you've kept just in case for over a year. Feel the lightness that follows. Digital, unfollow one account that breeds comparison, not inspiration. Temporal, decline one obligation that drains more energy than it returns. As you do this, hear Epictetus' razor-sharp reminder. Freedom isn't achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. Not all desires, just the ones that turn you into a passenger in your own life. Here's the subtle shift. Stoic minimalism isn't about having less for its own sake. It's about creating space for deeper thought, richer relationships, and the quiet confidence of knowing you're not hostage to possessions or opinions. Because dominance isn't about accumulating control over externals. It's about removing everything that blocks control over yourself. Lesson 13. Transform anger into action. Few emotions burn as intensely or destructively as anger. Seneca, who wrote an entire treatise on anger, called it brief insanity, a fire that scorches the hands of whoever holds it. But Stoics didn't just warn against rage, they offered something far more practical, a way to alchemize that raw energy into purposeful action. Because anger, when understood and redirected, can become fuel rather than wildfire. Here's the crucial distinction most miss. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about intercepting them before they hijack your reason. Seneca compared anger to a collapsing building. Once it gains momentum, it's nearly impossible to stop. But catch it early and you have the power to redirect its force. The 3-second pause technique. Stoic edition. Next time you feel anger's heat rising, whether from a careless comment or a frustrating setback, try this pivot. 1. Label it. Mentally say, this is anger, not I am angry. That tiny shift externalizes the emotion, creating critical distance. 2. Ask the Stoic question. Does this reaction serve my principles or betray them? Anger often masks deeper values like justice or respect. Channel the energy there. 3. Convert to action. Identify one constructive step. If it's a disrespectful coworker, draft a calm response. If it's systemic injustice, research organizations making change, history brims with examples of this redirection. When Cotto the Younger was publicly slapped, his attacker expected explosive retaliation. Instead, Cotto paused, then calmly continued his speech, proving true strength isn't in reaction, but in response. Your anger reframing challenge: pick one recurring trigger this week, maybe slow drivers, tone-deaf comments, or bureaucratic delays. Before reacting, ask, what deeper value does this touch? E.g., efficiency, fairness. How could I address the root cause instead of the symptom? Seneca offered this razor-sharp insight. No tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless wind strikes it. Anger, like wind, tests your foundations. The goal isn't to eliminate it, but to use its force to strengthen your resolve. Because a dominant mindset isn't immune to emotion, it's skilled in its alchemy. Under the flickering lamplight of his study, Seneca penned a truth that still baffles modern minds. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. At first glance, the Stoic dichotomy of control seems straightforward: separate what you can change from what you can't. But here's where most people stall, believing that surrendering control over externals means passivity. The real mastery lies in something far more dynamic, channeling all your energy into the one frontier that's truly yours, your response. Picture yourself as the captain of a ship, a favorite Stoic metaphor. Storm winds don't ask your permission to rage. Waves won't obey your commands, but the sails. The rudder, those are yours to adjust. This isn't about resignation, it's about precision focus. Ancient sailors didn't waste breath cursing the weather. They became virtuosos at reading it. That's the paradox. By releasing illusions of control over externals, you gain actual control over your trajectory. Modern life's hidden reefs. Where does this play out today? Consider traffic jams. You'll never unclog a highway by honking, but you can decide whether to spend that time fuming or listening to an audiobook that grows your mind. Criticism. You can't force others to retract their words, but you can choose whether to let their opinion become your prison. Pandemics/recessions, global events unfold beyond any individual's power, yet how you prepare, adapt, and support others remains firmly in your hands. Marcus Aurelius modeled this during Rome's darkest plagues. While others panicked, he focused on what his station required: organizing relief efforts, maintaining his duties, and journaling to steady his mind. His secret wasn't ignoring reality, it was redefining control. The response audit. Here's your navigational chart for deeper waters. 1. Identify your weather systems. List 3 recurring situations where you felt powerless, e.g., a micromanaging boss, slow bureaucracy. 2. Map the sails. For each, pinpoint one element within your influence, e.g., how you deliver updates to that boss or the tone you use with clerks. 3. Adjust course. Commit to a small action that shifts your focus from frustration to agency. Epictetus, born a slave, knew true freedom was found not in circumstances but in perspective. He taught men are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them. That traffic jam, it's also protected time to call an old friend. That criticism, perhaps it hides a grain of truth worth examining. When we obsess over changing winds, we forget we're holding the sails. So tonight, reflect. Where have I been straining against the unchangeable, and what muscle could I strengthen instead? That's the turning point where frustration becomes fuel, because dominance isn't about calm seas, it's about becoming the captain who thrives in any waters. Lesson 15: Character over reputation. The Stoic anchor in a world of noise. Epictetus cut to the heart of a modern epidemic with one piercing question. If someone told you that others spoke ill of you, would you rush to defend yourself? Then why worry about what they say if you already know it isn't true? That's the Stoic line in the sand. Reputation is the shadow, character is the substance. And in an age where likes and follows masquerade as worth, This distinction isn't just philosophy, it's survival. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, faced this daily. Courtiers whispered, rivals plotted, yet his private journals reveal a man more concerned with his moral compass than his public image. It never ceases to amaze me. We prize ourselves on others' opinions, yet won't spend a fraction of that effort examining our own souls. Here's the brutal truth. Chasing approval is like pouring your self-worth into a leaky bucket. No amount of external validation will ever fill it. The approval paradox. Neuroscience reveals a cruel irony. The more we seek praise, the more our brains reinforce the need for it. Social media didn't create this itch, it simply magnified an ancient weakness. Stoics recognized this trap centuries ago. Reputation depends on others' whims, and as Seneca noted, even the best people are fickle. Character is built through consistent action, whether anyone's watching or not. Consider Cato the Younger, who wore a threadbare toga to the Senate while others donned silks. When mocked, he replied, "I'd rather be laughed at for my cloak than accused of inconsistency." His power came not from conformity, but from the quiet confidence of knowing who he was. The mirror test. Here's how to start shifting focus from applause to authenticity. 1. Spot the leak. Identify one arena where others' opinions sway you: your outfit choices, career path, even parenting style. 2. Interrogate the cost. Ask, what energy am I wasting contorting myself for unseen judges? 3. Substitute the standard. Replace, will they approve, with, does this align with my principles? Marcus left himself this midnight reminder. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, not performatively, privately, in how you treat the waiter no one notices. In keeping promises when no one's keeping score. Your sovereignty challenge this week. Do one thing solely because it's right, not because it'll earn admiration. Maybe it's sharing credit when you could have taken it, admitting a mistake no one caught, creating something without posting it. Feel that quiet surge of power. That's the weight of external opinions sliding off your shoulders. As Epictetus told his students, you're not a circus animal performing for applause. You're a soul crafting a legacy no rumor can tarnish. And that, not the fickle cheers of the crowd, is where true dominance takes root. Lesson 16, the Stoic Pause. Where mastery meets moment, there's a split second that separates reactive impulse from reasoned action. A sliver of time the Stoics called the sacred pause. Seneca captured its power perfectly. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. But this isn't just about tempering rage, it's about hijacking autopilot before it crashes your judgment. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. Without that pause, emotions storm the bench and start passing sentences. With it, you become the judge. The physiology of the gap. Ancient Stoics didn't have fMRI scans, but they grasped a truth modern science confirms. The brain's amygdala, the alarm system for threats, fires before the prefrontal cortex can weigh in. That's why we blast angry texts or snap at loved ones, only to regret it moments later. But here's the key, that gap isn't fixed. Like a muscle, it can be trained. Epictetus prescribed a breath-counting ritual still used by Navy SEAL today. When agitated, count to 5 before speaking or moving. If still unsettled, count again. Simple, yes. Easy, never. Revolutionary, absolutely. From scrolls to screens, a modern case study. Take email, the ultimate trap for knee-jerk reactions. A study at Columbia University found that people who waited just 90 seconds before responding to provocative messages were rated as 40% more competent by peers. The Stoic method for this, Marcus Aurelius triple filter. 1. Is my response necessary? If not, delete the draft. 2. Is it kind or at least purposeful? If not, rewrite. 3. Would I stand by this if printed publicly? If not, walk away. Your pause toolkit next time tension rises, a rude comment, a frustrating call. Try this drill. Inhale for 4 seconds, silently label the emotion. This is frustration. Hold for 4, ask, what's the wisest next move? Exhale for 6, feel the space opening between trigger and action. Historian accounts describe Cato using this very technique when insulted in the forum. While crowds egged him on, he stood motionless, counting breaths until his composure returned. His eventual reply, so measured it shamed his detractors into silence. The magic isn't in suppressing emotion, it's in meeting it with awareness. Like a martial artist redirecting an opponent's force, the Stoic Pause lets you transform raw reaction into strategic response. Because dominance isn't about never feeling, it's about choosing how you act on those feelings. And that choice, it's always one breath away. Lesson 17, Everything is Fuel. The Alchemy of Obstacles. Marcus Aurelius left us a mental blueprint for turning adversity into advantage with one radical phrase. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Picture a blacksmith at his forge. The same fire that could destroy raw metal is precisely what tempers it into unbreakable steel. Stoics didn't just endure hardship, they leveraged it, treating every setback as raw material waiting to be shaped. History whispers proof of this mindset. Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, lost his entire fortune in a shipwreck only to reinvent himself as a philosopher, declaring, "Fortune has done me a favor by forcing me to live by my wits." Epictetus, born into slavery, transformed his chains into lessons on inner freedom, teaching, circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him. Marcus himself, ruling Rome during plague and war, used each crisis to refine his resilience, scribbling in Meditations, "The obstacle is not the thing, it's your attitude about the thing." Turn your resistance into persistence. Here's the shift that changes everything. Obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're feedback. When a sculptor's chisel meets resistance, they don't blame the marble, they adjust their angle. That delayed project, it's teaching you adaptability. That financial pinch, revealing creative resourcefulness. Even pain serves a purpose, like fire testing gold's purity. Your Forge Challenge 1. Name your current anvil. Identify one challenge weighing on you: a rejection, a limitation, a fear. 2. Heat treat it. Ask, what quality could this hardship strengthen if I let it? Patience, courage, problem solving. 3. Strike while hot. Commit to one small action that repurposes the obstacle's energy. Study a skill the setback demands, or help someone facing a similar trial. Like a blacksmith's hammer shaping molten metal, your response determines whether life's blows break you or forge you. As Marcus wrote on the battlefield, the blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Your turn to stoke the flames. Lesson 18, The Stolen Years. How to reclaim your time from modern bandits. Seneca opened his piercing essay on the shortness of life with a dagger to the chest. It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. 2,000 years later, his words cut deeper than ever. The average person now spends 4.5 hours a day staring at their phone. That's 68 full days a year lost to scrolling, tapping, and absorbing content we won't remember by sunrise. The Stoics weren't just warning against idleness. They exposed a theft in progress, our own complicity in handing over life's most precious currency. The great time heist. Modern life disguises time wasters as necessities. Just checking notifications becomes 90 daily phone pickups. Quick breaks on social media devour 100-300 hours annually, enough to master a language or write a novel. Background noise of streaming services means the average person will spend 5 years of their life watching TV. Meanwhile, Stoics like Seneca treated time like a bleeding wound, something to apply pressure to, not ignore. His famous letter to Lucilius wasn't about productivity hacks, it was a slap awake. You're living as if destined to live forever. You squander time as if it's limitless when the day of death looms for each of us. The Stoic time audit. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We don't lack time, we lack intention. The Roman statesman Cato divided his day into strict quarters: administration, study, physical training, and rest, not to micromanage but to honor life's finiteness. Compare that to today's epidemic of time confetti, days shredded into meaningless fragments. Your reclamation challenge. Seneca proposed a radical solution: live immediately. Not recklessly, but with the awareness that this hour could be your last. Try this today. 1. Track the leaks. Use your phone's screen time report to identify one mindless habit, e.g., 40 minutes daily on celebrity gossip. 2. Swap the currency. Replace it with an activity that pays compound interest: 20 minutes reading philosophy, 15 journaling, or even uninterrupted conversation. 3. Multiply the yield. Calculate how much richer your year becomes with that hour reinvested, e.g., 365 hours equals 15 full days regained. The Stoic secret. They didn't just count days, they made days count. While others sleepwalked through life, they wielded time like a sculptor's chisel, carving meaning from every moment. As Seneca wrote, life is long if you know how to use it. Your turn to stop spending it and start investing it. Lesson 19. The Daily Crucible. Turning life's irritations into Stoic strength. Think about the last time something trivial derailed your mood. Maybe a spilled coffee, a delayed train, or someone cutting in line. These aren't just inconveniences, they're practice sessions in disguise. The Stoics had a name for this: ascesis, the art of transforming everyday friction into resilience training. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly: the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes. The obstacle to our acting, what impedes action, advances action. In other words, life doesn't give you tests, it is the test. The philosophical immune system. Just as our bodies build immunity through controlled exposure to germs, our minds grow stronger by facing manageable stressors. Epictetus compared this to a wrestler training with progressively tougher opponents. Difficulties show what men are. Therefore, when a challenge confronts you, remember, this is no less than the Olympiad of the soul. That slow driver, your patience coach; the malfunctioning printer, your adaptability trainer. The key is recognizing these moments as voluntary drills, not random punishments. The 3-step reframe. Next time annoyance flares up, try this Stoic pivot. 1. Name the gift. Identify the virtue this frustration could strengthen. Traffic jams teach patience. Technical glitches cultivate problem solving. Criticism hones emotional agility. 2. Narrow the scope. Ask, what part of this is truly unbearable? Most irritations shrink when examined. What feels like a catastrophe is often just discomfort. 3. Flip the script. Replace "this is happening to me" with "this is happening for my growth." Seneca mastered this, writing, "I thank adversity for finding me prepared." Your training ground. Pick one recurring nuisance this week, be it long checkout lines, a neighbor's loud music, or endless email threads. Instead of reflexively reacting, pause. Notice the physiological signs of irritation: clenched jaw, racing thoughts. Interrogate, what's the worst-case outcome here? Is my reaction proportional? Redirect, channel the energy into something productive. Use waiting time to plan your day, or practice deep breathing. History remembers the Athenian philosopher Crates, who carried a jar of rotten fish through crowded markets to acclimate himself to ridicule. Extreme. Perhaps, but his point endures. Discomfort is a choice you make before it's a circumstance you face. The modern world offers endless opportunities to practice, not in some distant dojo, but in the grocery store, the commute, the Zoom call that starts late. As Marcus reminded himself, you've been given these conditions as raw material. What will you sculpt? Your irritation isn't the enemy, it's the whetstone sharpening your edge. And with each small victory over life's friction, you're not just enduring, you're evolving. Lesson 20, the ripple effect. How small circles create big change. Picture a stone dropped into still water. The initial splash is small, but the ripples spread far beyond the point of impact. That's the essence of the Stoic circle of influence. While the dichotomy of control teaches us to separate what's ours from what isn't, this next step is about expanding that inner circle deliberately. Epictetus hinted at this when he said, "Don't demand that events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and your influence will grow." It's not about controlling the waves, it's about learning to steer your boat so skillfully that the currents begin to shift around you. The gardener's mindset. Think of your sphere of influence like a garden plot. You can't force the sun to shine or the rain to fall, but you can till the soil, plant resilient seeds, and pull weeds the moment they sprout. Marcus Aurelius modeled this as emperor. While he couldn't single-handedly stop Rome's wars or plagues, he could reform laws, fund hospitals, and lead by example. His private journals reveal the strategy. Concentrate on what's in front of you, the task, the principle, the action. The rest will follow. Modern research backs this ancient insight. Psychologists call it the locus of control. People who focus energy on actionable areas experience 23% less stress and achieve 37% more goals than those fixated on external factors. Mapping your spheres. Here's how to apply this today with a simple exercise. 1. Draw 3 concentric circles. Inner circle, control, actions and attitudes, e.g., your effort, honesty, daily habits. Middle circle, influence, relationships and environments, e.g., how you mentor colleagues, shape home routines. Outer circle, no control, global events, others' choices, past/future. 2. Audit your energy for a day. Track where your mental focus goes. Most people spend 80% of time in the outer circle where they're powerless. 3. Redirect one thing. Shift a sliver of that energy inward. Example, instead of raging about politics, volunteer locally. Rather than stressing over a distant promotion, master a skill that makes you indispensable. History's most effective changemakers understood this. Consider Florence Nightingale. Amid horrific wartime conditions, she couldn't end the Crimean War, but her focus on hygiene protocols in her hospitals dropped mortality rates by 60%. That's the ripple effect in action. Your cultivation challenge. Pick one area where you felt powerless, say, workplace culture or a strained friendship. Ask, what's one seed I can plant within my plot, e.g., initiating a weekly feedback session or listening without judgment. How might this small shift create wider waves? Seneca observed, "He who moves a mountain begins with small stones." Dominance isn't about shouting into the wind, it's about positioning your sail so the wind carries you further. And sometimes the most powerful way to expand your influence is to deepen your focus on the ground beneath your feet. Lesson 21, the Stoic mirror. Crafting your ideal self. History remembers Marcus Aurelius not just as a Roman emperor, but as a man who kept a relentless mirror in front of his soul. His private journals, now known as Meditations, weren't written for fame or legacy. They were a relentless conversation with his highest self, a dialogue shaped by the question, what would the best version of me do in this moment? This was the Stoic practice of prosoph, mindful self-observation, not to judge but to align. The genius of this method, it transforms abstract ideals into tangible benchmarks. Marcus didn't just admire virtues like wisdom and justice, he hunted for their embodiment in others. His journal pages brim with names, his teacher Rusticus for integrity, the philosopher Apollonius for calm under pressure, even his adoptive father Antoninus for humility in power. When you need encouragement, think of the qualities these men possessed, he wrote. Not that they had them, but that they cultivated them. This isn't about comparison or imitation, it's about aspiration. Think of it like assembling a personal board of directors for your character. Who in your life or history exemplifies patience when you're quick to react? Who models creativity in problem solving? These figures become living mirrors, reflecting back the gaps between who you are and who you could be. Your virtue blueprint. Here's how to build your own Stoic mirror. 1. Identify 3 anchors. Choose traits you want to strengthen, perhaps discipline, compassion, or resilience. 2. Assign role models. Match each virtue to someone who embodies it, a mentor, historical figure, even a fictional character. 3. Create a daily checkpoint. At sunset, ask, when today did I mirror this ideal? Where did I fall short? And what would my role model have done? Modern psychology confirms this works. Studies show people who visualize their best possible selves for 5 minutes daily experience higher motivation and lower stress. But the Stoics added a crucial twist. They paired vision with action. Epictetus taught his students to carry mental images of their heroes, not just for inspiration, but as measuring sticks. If someone brought your actions to your mentor's attention, he'd ask, would they nod in approval or avert their eyes? Try this today. Pick one quality you'd like to strengthen this month, say patience under pressure. Now think of someone who radiates that trait. Next time frustration bubbles up, pause and ask, how would they navigate this? You're not borrowing their identity, you're activating dormant potential within yourself. Because the ultimate mirror isn't held up by others, it's the one you polish daily through choice after choice. And in that reflection, not perfection but progress. As Marcus reminded himself in the quiet hours, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. Your next act is the first brushstroke. Lesson 22. The long game. Why mastery demands slow growth. Deep in the forests of Europe, a single oak tree can take 300 years to reach full height. Yet its roots stretch deeper than its branches ever will. The Stoics understood this truth about human growth long before modern science confirmed it. Anything worth possessing, from wisdom to resilience, demands seasons of invisible labor. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome for 19 years, scribbled this reminder in Meditations. Think of your life as a vine that produces grapes year after year, not all at once. Each season's growth depends on the last. In an era obsessed with overnight transformations, this lesson might be the most radical of all. Dominance isn't seized, it's cultivated. The quick-fix mirage. Modern culture sells us shortcuts like cheap souvenirs, get-rich schemes, crash diets, and 3 easy steps to enlightenment. Neuroscience reveals why we fall for it. Our brains are wired to prefer immediate rewards, even when we know delayed gratification yields better results. The Stoics saw this trap clearly. Seneca mocked the impatience of his peers, writing, "How foolish to expect plants to grow when we keep uprooting them to check their progress." Yet scroll through any social feed today, and you'll find the same habit: people abandoning skills, relationships, or goals because results didn't bloom fast enough. The acorn principle. Consider the humble acorn, small enough to fit in a child's palm, yet containing the blueprint for a giant. It doesn't argue with its timeline or compare itself to faster-growing weeds. It simply focuses on 2 things: sinking roots down while reaching up, season after season. Epictetus applied this to human potential. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. The frustration you feel when progress lags. That's not proof it's failing, it's proof you're planting something substantial. Patience as a practice, not a virtue. Stoics didn't just wait, they invested. Marcus spent decades journaling to hone his mindset. Musonius Rufus taught that philosophy wasn't a lecture to attend, but a way of living to be practiced daily, like a blacksmith forging his tools. Their secret wasn't passive endurance, it was active trust in compounding effort. modern research echoes this. Studies on grit show that consistent, incremental effort outperforms sporadic bursts of intensity every time. Your long game challenge: pick one area where impatience has sabotaged you, perhaps a skill you abandoned, a strained relationship, or a financial goal that feels distant. Now apply the Stoics' 3-season test. 1. Root work. What small daily action would build foundational strength, e.g., 10 minutes of language practice vs. Cramming. 2. Weathering storms. How can you reinterpret setbacks as natural phases, not failures? A missed workout isn't ruin, it's rain nourishing resilience. 3. Harvest mindset. Visualize not just the end goal, but who you become en route. As Seneca noted, the path itself prepares you for the destination. The poet Rilke once wrote, "Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart. Try to love the questions themselves." That's the essence of Stoic persistence, not gritting your teeth until rewards arrive, but finding meaning in the process of becoming. Because the oak tree's real lesson isn't about waiting for greatness. It's about knowing that beneath the surface, every day of quiet growth is already greatness in motion. Tonight, as you reflect, ask yourself, where have I been uprooting my own progress, and what might bloom if I simply let the seasons do their work? The answer won't arrive overnight. And that's precisely the point. Imagine these 22 Stoic lessons as gears in a finely crafted clock, each one distinct, yet all interlocking to create precise, unstoppable motion. What began as individual principles, control over reactions, embracing obstacles, mastering desire, now reveals its true power, a system for mental dominance. This isn't about bottling up emotions or pretending life's storms don't exist. It's about building an inner framework so resilient that chaos becomes fuel, setbacks morph into stepping stones, and every external event, whether praise or criticism, finds its proper place without shaking your core. The Stoics weren't philosophers in ivory towers. They were warriors, statesmen, and former slaves who transformed crushing adversity into unbreakable strength. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire amid plague and war. Epictetus endured enslavement yet taught kings. Seneca navigated Nero's court without losing his soul. Their secret, recognizing that mindset isn't reactive, it's architectural. Just as a cathedral's arches distribute weight to stand for centuries, these 22 lessons distribute life's pressures so you bend but never break. Here's the beautiful paradox. The more you internalize practices like negative visualization or voluntary discomfort, the lighter your mind becomes. What once felt like hardship, delayed flights, criticism, even loss, starts revealing hidden edges to grip and climb. As Seneca observed, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. That's the alchemy of Stoicism. It doesn't remove life's weight. It forges shoulders strong enough to carry it with grace. Now, this isn't about perfection. Even Marcus Aurelius scribbled frustrated reminders to himself in the dead of night. Progress lies in direction, not flawlessness. So here's your challenge. Don't try to master all 22 lessons at once. Choose one, just one, that prickled your conscience most. Maybe it's pausing before reacting, or treating irritation as training, or remembering how brief life truly is. For the next 7 days, apply it like a daily vitamin for your mind. Watch how a single gear turning consistently begins to shift everything around it. Epictetus, who knew true freedom despite physical chains, left us with these liberating words: "No man is free who is not master of himself." Your dominance begins not in controlling the world, but in commanding your response to it. So tell us in the comments which lesson struck you deepest, because the real philosophy happens not in theory, but in the choices you make after this video ends. The Stoics handed you the tools. Now it's your turn to